Good evening. My name is Chance Bowen, and this is the Paint the Town Red podcast. Today, we have some interesting news. State Ambassador for Israel, Mike Huckabee, is calling Israel out for treating Christians like adversaries. Trump sues the Wall Street Journal for releasing a so-called fake birthday letter that he allegedly sent to Jeffrey Epstein back in 2003. And Ukraine was hit hard last night with no one getting any sleep. Russia bombed them with 450 missiles across all major cities in Ukraine. First, it turns out that all the people that say Israel is a democracy that is way better than anywhere in the Middle East might not be being honest about that. They are bombing churches, not letting Christians in, according to Mike Huckabee, and Netanyahu won't have an election because they're always in times of war, conveniently. Not to mention, he's also being investigated for crimes, and yet they can't undergo the investigation because he's so busy at war. And with the recent Syrian thing going on, I'm kind of in a weird spot on my algorithm on my phone, because I get the left-leaning stuff and I get the right-leaning stuff and I get this libertarian stuff and I get the conservative stuff. I kind of get a little mix of everything. And, the conservatives, some of the, establishment conservatives are really diving this message of, look at Syria is bombing Christians and Israel's coming in and saving the day. And then on the other side, they're saying, well, actually, that's all a false flag, and that the Syrian government is ran by a gentleman that I mentioned a few weeks ago that was actually part of ISIS. And he's always been in favor of the Israeli government. And people suspect that he's even being paid by the Israeli government. Well, he actually is now the new president for Syria. And as soon as he was elected and put into place, now all of a sudden there is these instances where Israel is bombing Syria, and they're apparently killing Christians. I really don't know what to make out of it. I know what I think. I know what I believe, obviously, that Israel is probably doing a false flag like they do oftentimes. Some would suspect that even October 7th, where, they have the highest security in the world and everything else, and people are suspecting it just doesn't make sense how those people were able to get in there and do so much damage, which I don't know if I give any of those claims validation, if we were going to be 100% honest, but you could see how Netanyahu, being that he is going up for re-election and being that he's being investigated right now for crimes, that he would he's incentivized to be at war. Let's just put it that way. And so you have to pay attention and say, is he really going to war for good causes? Like in the case of Gaza, is that a good cause? Are they really leveling the entire area and killing thousands and thousands and children and Christians and everything else? And is it good? Well, the rest of the right seems to be turning in the direction of being skeptical of Netanyahu. On the Michael Knowles show, which is The Daily Wire, ran by Ben Shapiro, who's heavily in favor of Israel, he goes on and says this.
The IDF has struck the only Catholic church in Gaza. 3 people died from their injuries, 9 others were wounded, including one in critical condition, and the priest, the parish priest, Father Gabriel Romanelli, was also injured. Israel came out later on after international outcry, including from the White House. Israel came out and said, it was a mistake. It was an accident. Was it an accident? I don't see any evidence that it was an accident. Can you provide me some proof that it was an accident? You struck the church. Churches are pretty obvious targets. They're pretty obvious sites, Can you explain to me how this was an accident? The Latin Patriarch seems to think it was intentional. The targeting of innocent civilians, not just a stray bullet, the targeting. Sources close to the Patriarchate's chancery told the Pillar Thursday that some officials believe the strike could have been a deliberate act of retaliation after Christian leaders recently condemned Israeli settler attacks on a West Bank Christian town. There's another story coming out, which is that Mike Huckabee, as strong a supporter as the state of Israel as there is, according to the Times of Israel, Mike Huckabee is threatening to declare Israel not welcoming Christians as a visa fight blows open. Penned a scathing letter to the Interior Minister, accusing Israel of blocking Christian groups from entering Israel and threatening reciprocal steps against Israeli visa seekers. If you're losing Mike Huckabee, the Israeli government is really screwing up, is really not playing its cards right. The only church in Gaza, even if accidentally, but especially if not accidentally, you're losing me.
Better be careful. Daddy Shapiro might not like that. Next, we have Trump going to bat in court with the Wall Street Journal, claiming that his birthday letter that he sent to Jeffrey Epstein was a big hoax, but it was all a hoax. So my question is, if Jeffrey Epstein there's no files and Jeffrey Epstein is perfectly normal and if everything's fine, then why would he care about the mail? Why would he care about a fake birthday letter that he sent to him while he was his friend and supposedly had no idea that he was a bad guy? Why would Trump even care? I mean, is this something to be sued over? I don't know. I think what they're doing is they're trying to avert what's going on, and he's trying to take the steam off the Jeffrey Epstein case with him. And he's trying to say like, oh, well, they lied about this one small aspect of Jeffrey Epstein, so they must be lying about the whole thing. And it goes into his belief or his statement about how the Jeffrey Epstein files and everything is just a big Democrat hoax. But I think that they're just averting. It's kind of like when your wife tells you something and she tells you things all the time and you kind of forget a lot. She says things and you have selective hearing, so you forget. But now she uses that in the future when she doesn't actually tell you things. She uses that to then say, oh, remember I told you? And you go, no, you didn't tell me. And she goes, you remember, we were talking about, your red jacket you were wearing. And you go, well, I do remember the red jacket, but I just don't remember you planning our entire weekend. I do remember the red jacket. And then she'll look at you and goes, are you saying that I didn't talk to you about the red jacket? No. Yeah, I agree. The red jacket was talked about, but the plans for the weekend, this is not an actual instance, I'm just giving an example, was not actually talked about. So anyway, I feel that this is what's going on with this birthday letter. Steve Bannon is saying that the MAGA base is united now against the globalists trying to frame Trump. But I'm not me. I don't think, and not a lot of people. I think it all sucks. I think we're not united in this. I think there's a blackmail operation going on with the Jeffrey Epstein client list. You guys heard it 1,000 times. Everybody knows that's what's going on. And we're not doing anything about it. Nobody's talking about that. We're talking about letters and talking about all these side things and the Democrats and the Republicans. It's like, man, our government is being blackmailed and controlled. And there's a lot of proof suggesting that. A lot of stuff suggesting that. And nobody wants to talk about that. I mean, it's crazy. There's a few select people that do. And then those people that do, I mean, they're just being completely like, you're a Nazi. And it's like, man, I mean, what the people that came here to America in the beginning, in our inception, it's like they threw a revolution because they didn't like the tyranny that was going on and the double standards that were going on and the taxes, unlawful tax. And it's like, man, we're taxed more than ever. We got all this, rules don't apply to the rich and powerful, and they're doing it right in our face, and they're being open about it. And nobody really, so the Trump team's doing everything they can to divert the subject, of course. Well, did you sleep last night? Well, Ukraine didn't, after they were hit with 450 long-range missiles hitting most major cities. I can't help but to think that Zelensky is doing the exact same thing that Netanyahu's doing. It's like, he's incentivized to go to war. I mean, a lot of the rich, wealthy class within his country that got him elected, by the way, they're making a lot of money on this war. First thing. Second thing, if they're in war, they can't have an election. So 1, he stays in power as the president. 2, he's looked at like a hero to all these people. 3, all of his wealthy class are getting paid big. He's incentivized to not want to make a deal and to stay in war. That's a fact. Maybe he's doing it, maybe he's not. But is the fact that he is incentivized to? Yes, it is. And you have a conflict of interest there. And if you're not too smart, you just see and you go, Putin bad, Zelensky good. It's silly to me. That's silly. I think that this whole Ukraine war was an intelligence community setup in order to make their guys money, that the ones who are funding them to do these things in the first place. And I'm an American nationalist. I don't want to see Russia take over Europe. I want to see America remain in the first place spot. I want to see America do the best. Of course, we all do. I mean, that are American, I hope. But I don't understand how you can see Ukraine, who is led by Zelensky, who was in a gay boys band. He was in a gay boys band. He's not Christian. He's the opposite. He's a faggot is what he is. And then you have Putin, who has meetings with religious leaders all over his country and say, I'm going to support you. They have the biggest cathedrals being built right now in Russia, and they're banning stuff like gays, and they're banning the gays. Who do you agree with on an ideological level, despite what their name is and the color of their flag? On an ideological level, who do you agree with more of those two? I know who I agree with more. So simply put, why don't I want to be involved in Ukraine, or why I think our country shouldn't be Russia-based, Ukrainian, gay? Simple as that, really. You don't even have to go any further. You have to bring up how, we said we weren't going to move one more inch, and then we pretty much went back on that and did anyway. And how the Democrats, like Bill Clinton, pretty much pushed Russia into going into this war. You know, you don't have to bring up all that stuff. And what's crazy to me is like the politicians here, they know where the money goes. They know where the money's at. They know who funds their campaigns and where their money comes from. And so what are they going to do? They're going to push for World War II because then their big boys get paid. That's why they were probably elected in the first place, in order to orchestrate things like this, in order for them to get paid. So you have this going on, and then you have them raising a Ukrainian flag in their office or wearing a Ukrainian stupid suit. And then you have their followers, who are supposed Christians, going off and waving the Ukrainian flag and saying Putin's a Hitler, Putin's Hitler, and we need to protect, and all these things. I shouldn't say Hitler anymore. I've said it 5 times, and I think they're shadow banning me now because of it. I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, this is the Paint the Town Red podcast, kind of a short one today. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend and hope you guys have a wonderful week. Peace.